that would be good. Perfect. There we go.
Yeah. So, just kind of reading more about recruitment strategies, we came across this study by Urban Sustainable Directors Network and their Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion in Recruitment and Hiring Retention report. So we thought, this paragraph really stood out to us. So traditional forms of outreach, like posted environmental organization networks, serve to advantage white applicants because they use lines of communication that are expected for those who are already familiar with those networks. And in sustainability professions, relying on traditional forms of outreach can have an unintended outcome of decreasing the percentage of qualified applicants of color in the applicant pool. Such dynamics should also be considered with social media accounts by sending announcements to schools and large institutions that may be predominantly white. So, when we're thinking about recruitment and hiring, and we just have to be very aware about like where we are doing our recruitment, where our message is being sent to. And you can definitely go to the next slide. So some best practices for some focused outreach is necessary. So focused outreach directed towards communities of color can be a highly effective way to increase the number of qualified applicants of color and balancing the impact of traditional forms of outreach. So, we talk a little bit about advertising for diversity, right? And we want to advertise with professional organizations, ask professional organizations for names of potential candidates. When we're like targeting recruitment activities to underrepresented populations, and that could be partnering with minority serving institutions, develop relationships and recruitment plans, with your partner organizations, maybe if you have any really interested and involved volunteers, even if you're not hiring for a position, you keep their name on like in a file or their resume in a file in case you have any more job opening opportunities, because you're working directly in the community with someone who's aware of the community. Maybe they might be on a volunteer basis, but in the future, if you get funding and you have a job application, just having that resource of folks that you've worked with throughout the time is super important. Creating maybe a diverse recruitment or hiring team, having people that look like the people that you're trying to recruit go out and talk to underrepresented populations. You can go to local community junior colleges that serve primarily underrepresented populations. So there's lots of ways that you can engage, and a lot of these ways and these suggestions are in that study. Going on to on-job mentorship and career ladders. These help provide opportunities, information for internships that you might have, and is that like kind of what we're trying to do with Youth Leadership Working Group, and having a space where youth can express and talk and be introduced to these wide range of internships and opportunities. The next slide. The example recruitment plan, we used Youth Forest Council. So this plan was developed by the person that was in my position before me, but I thought it hit a lot of great points. So I think, the recruitment plan for Youth Forest Council in the previous years, they had some goals like bring awareness to youth council internship experiences. So, what can you do in Youth Forest Council? Gathering completed applications that represent fullness of Austin's community, and creating program goals to create pathways for historically underrepresented and forestry nature-based careers, eliminate barriers in the application process, both logistically and psychologically. And, that is something that we are working on all the time, especially being employees of the city and kind of going through, trying to work through the barriers of applying to the city and getting all the necessary information you need for a city job. That is an ever working project. But, we are making our voices heard, and we are trying to, find good pathways to overcome and eliminate some of these barriers. Just be conscious of the design decisions in your recruitment. You want pictures that represent the folks that you are trying to recruit. Sometimes stock images do not cut it. So maybe take pictures at your events, community events, volunteer events that you can further use in some of your promotion goals. You can use what websites and landing pages and things like that, but we just always have to remember accessibility, and not everyone has access to a computer or maybe the internet. So in recruitment strategies, you can definitely look into like some affinity groups, community groups. You can do maybe like some advertisement in newspapers, especially community newspapers run by community colors, multicultural centers, job boards, websites. So kind of just like a wide range of different interactive opportunities so folks can see your recruitment strategies and plans. For Youth Forest Council, we try to navigate using our community tree priority map of like our outreach strategies and where we can most impact underrepresented communities and communities of color for recruitment strategies. Indirect recruitment is also wonderful. I know in the time of COVID, we had a really hard time trying to recruit folks because everything was online. But if we can, the more in person I feel, the better, when you personally meet someone that is offering that job and you can talk to them and really network. I saw a quick question. So how do you know if you received applicants from historically underrepresented communities? I think that's just by the questions you asked on your application, demographic questions, address, zip codes, race, just kind of like those demographic questions just to add on to your application and kind of come and seeing, where folks land. And we use our community tree priority map a lot, something that the Urban Forestry Department put together, and kind of plugging in where the applicants were coming from, and you kind of can see that. And I'll share that map in a second in the chat for y'all to see. And I had some quotes from some previous Youth Forest Council members about like the promotional items and like when they saw the recruitment items. So Melody, so we did when we changed our application form for Youth Forest Council. So like before they thought the call up the city of Austin one, like our personal like form stack one, we like put in that information. And so that's how we got all that information. But back to the quotes that we had. A Youth Forest Council member, the banner caught my eye because it had a picture of a Black girl with red hair who was planting trees. I had purple hair at that time, so that gave me a sense of comfort knowing that this wasn't going to be a job where you need to change how you look to fit a role. It also encouraged me to apply because it let me know that I still had chance as a minority. So doing these changes really make an impact, especially visually. Yeah. We can go to the next slide.
Thanks, Ashley. Yes, we kind of wanted to also shout out that Riverwatch and Peas, our partners who are here today, and Youth Force Council cadets, we seem to be really trying those best practices in recruitment and have for some years. So would love the additional guidance from our folks here today. The thing I wanted to talk about is what we've really been like brainstorming across partnerships is like building this stronger network of support and how that really impacts supporting folks into their next jobs or opportunities. As like sometimes it seems like the process for recruitment amongst similar organizations can be competitive, which makes sense. Everyone wants to fill their positions, but I'm wondering how we can more go to collaborative. And I think this group, we're already doing that. So it's really cool, but that seems to maybe be a shift where we could recommend a larger strategy across Austin. And based on a couple of reports that we got, community organization reports that we got for the Civilian Conservation Corps, which I'll link them in the chat in a minute. Really building a network of support for young folks and a network or pathway into jobs that helps reduce barriers and helps folks navigate was recommended. So let's see. Some things that we're trying is, again, that strong relationships with each other, with young folks, and with the orgs and groups that we work with. A couple examples with young folks for getting them back into the system. I just reach out and text people every couple months in our alumni network, and I'm sure y'all do that too, of just check in, how are you? And when those jobs come up, share. I find that more effective than the email lists. So that's more work, but then our team does that too and shares that. And then I think in this room, strong relationships, we're sitting down at the tables talking to each other. And, you know, I'm really excited that with Chanel and Beth's support, and probably Amelia, you too, we have 3 Riverwatch alumni stepping into the role with Austin Civilian Conservation Corps. So really helping connect that. I won't say their names in this meeting, but I'm very excited about that. And that's been the support of Victor, developing relationships as an alumni from Youth Riverwatch into cadets, circling back to that Youth Riverwatch network and connecting those dots. So I think that's a really nice example of how can we serve as a bit more of an ecosystem together. And then another one, focus sharing opportunities. Of course, we try to do that. And that's kind of what I was just sharing, creating those pathways. Something that Youth Forest Council, Ashley and myself tried last year is like a doubling up method. We knew that Youth Forest Council was a very part-time position. And with the cadet program, we had extra hours. So we said, hey, can we support each other where your folks can get rounded out hours, work on more projects, get both experiences on their resumes. And then we had to do a lot of HR finagling to share staff and share money, but it was like that reduction barrier that allows other folks even more hours and compensation. So that was something we're also trying that with Youth Leadership Working Group, where if folks go to their daily job like Peas with Lauren, can they join in for a youth leadership monthly meeting where it gives them an extra hour of paid time maybe, or just that extra network of support where they maybe hear about their next job opportunity or just make friends. So those are some things we tried. And then transition periods, kind of gaps in when employment ends to the next opportunity. We're trying to plug that in with Visa cards. I don't know if nonprofits have a hard time hiring people, but the city is really slow and prohibitively slow, and you lose folks who want to work for you. So we're looking at how do we, hold on to folks and pay them for this little bit amount, a little compensation until they can get into that next job. So those are just some of the ways that we've put our heads together to really try to work within systems that aren't very functional and try to work around those and make sure people are getting more opportunities, more hours, and compensated for that. So I don't know if Sheridan or Ashley or anyone wants to share about any of the network of support that I just mentioned.
Yeah, I think you really explained that pretty well, kind of just, making those collaborative efforts to create more pathways into green careers. I've seen a few students now, alum from last year's YFC now becoming a triple C member, kind of continuing that pathway, maybe more opportunities to come back and work for, urban forestry department, DSD. It's important of collaborations and partnerships so we can expand these opportunities for our young folks, especially in terms of restrictions, especially in the city environment. It's all about kind of finagling through and trying to find, good opportunities where we can implement eliminating barriers and trying to make our programs more inclusive and equitable.
I know for me, this past year, I was a part of Youth Forest Council, and I also was working with, and I was also on as a quad chair of Youth Leadership Working Group. So when it came to paying me, I think we just shared a timesheet. So I would just write, it would just have like a different, like a code or task order. I don't know if I'm using that word right, but I would just write like a new line, like a different thing, but it was on the same like timesheet. And then for my transition period, when I was going from, once Youth Forest Council ended, I wasn't a city employee anymore, but I was still a part of Youth Forest Council. So I've been paid with Visa cards. So that's how they've been like remedying that transition.
Cool. I think, yeah, thank you. Breakout rooms. Yes, I was maybe going to offer if we wanted to stay whole group, because there's not too many different organizations represented, and maybe just do this conversation 20 minutes together. If we prefer to have 2 breakout groups, if folks want to go off into another one, that's absolutely doable. Does anyone have any opinion on that?
I like the idea of staying as a group, and we can maybe go through all of us and kind of just talk about our recruitment strategies, especially with like Austin Youth Riverwatch and Keys. I'm curious. It's not a lot of us, so we can definitely probably stay in the same one.
Awesome. So we'll have about 20 minutes together. And this can be really free flowing, but some like maybe talking point is if there's a recruitment strategy you'd like to share so we all know about it and practice that. And then kind of maybe your thoughts on this network of support. What's working well? How can we do this better together? Or other thoughts. And then I'll open it up to anyone who would like to share.
Would you like me to stop sharing my screen? I'm also happy to take notes for this portion.
Yeah, and I can pop those questions in the chat in case it's helpful for folks to read those.
Chanel and I are more than happy to talk about our organization and things we do at Austin Youth Riverwatch in regards to recruiting right now, if y'all are ready for that. Sweet, sweet, sweet. Well, awesome. My name's Beth, she, her pronouns. I am a program co-manager with Chanel over at Austin Youth Riverwatch. Is everyone pretty familiar with our organization, or do we need to kind of run through quickly about what we do? I just like talk about our organization and like a whole gist of things if everyone is familiar with us. Or Austin Environmental Leaders Program, which is with students who graduated from high school, anyone, you don't have to be in college, so just ages 18 to 24. I think that right away is one positive thing that we do with our AEL hiring and recruitment. We automatically initially send out a text to our alumni because, as you said, Kirsten, texting is the form of communication for youth. It is the easiest way to get in contact with them. And it's the easiest way to kind of like reference back and look to see like, you know, what have we talked about? What is the talking point I can talk to you about when I'm sending you this opportunity? So we definitely do that. So we send it out to our alumni first, and then we will target different colleges and we try to diversify our colleges. We will post our AEL application all the way in Georgetown and then in San Marcos, and then all of the universities here in Austin, which is a lot of them. So we'll do that afterwards. And then as part of our recruiting, like I said, for the 18 to 24-year-olds, there's no requirement for you to be in college, and there's no requirement for you to have to get a degree or have a degree of any sort. So that's an opportunity within itself to join. And with the AEL students specifically, we tell them when we're recruiting, like, you do not have to love science and you do not have to love the outdoors to be a part of this program. And you do not have to meet all of this criteria that's here for you. Like, if you are interested in this, and let's say you check 70% of the boxes, please still apply. Like, just because maybe you don't have one certain thing on there, we still want you to apply, sort of thing. And then I'm trying to think about our final things that we do with AEL specifically for recruiting and hiring. And I think one of the last things is in regards to AEL specifically, and I'll have Chanel talk more on our after school program. But as y'all mentioned earlier, we do try to build authentic and supporting relationships with all of the students that we serve. And we try to deliver programming bilingually for them if it is necessary. And in regards to the onboarding portion of it, we try to keep it as simple as possible and providing it in multiple ways, whether it's paper form that you need or you want to do it online. It's just trying to keep it as simple as possible so people aren't overwhelmed before they even join. Because, you know, paperwork can be such a big deterrent. And our staff members will provide support with filling out any and all applications, any questions that come up. I know Chanel and I have sat on Zoom with students before and we'll be like, all right, what is your name? And we'll like just type literally everything in for them. So it gets submitted. But yeah, those are kind of the things we do when we're recruiting for AEL students. And then I'll have Chanel speak on high school students. And if y'all have any questions, feel free to just say them out loud or in the chat. So yeah.
Yeah. So in regards to our after school program, which is anywhere from just graduated 8th grade all the way through just graduated high school in our summer programs at least. And so in terms of recruiting them, I think like Ashley mentioned, it's the FaceTime that is the most important. And so we go into classrooms as many as we can get into, particularly like we try to focus on AVID classes at most of our high schools, as well as science classes, your environmental science class, biology class. Some schools have even like a sustainability club or things like that. So we'll try and, you know, make contacts with those teachers or mentors or whoever it is at those campuses, and try and, you know, have like a little bit of a 15-20 minute presentation where it's mostly pictures. We talk about who we are, what we do, and it puts a face to the program, puts all their students' faces to the program too, which it gives them the chance to ask questions and really like see what we do, not just like a flyer. And even so, like when we go to the classes, we new to us this year, at least, we started using a QR code for our short application. So we have 2 applications, one that's really short, like basic name, information, quick liability thing, to kind of just get the contact information with us and know that they're interested. With that application, they can come join us for an after school session or 2. And then once they, are ready to like really join us, then we send them like the long registration form that's got like all the important information and is kind of terrible, but it's got to be done. So we try and get them in with a short application, and then we'll do the long one. And that is, just a way easier way for them to get in, to meet us, to meet other students, see that it's, fun, that we're outside, we're doing all this stuff. And once we know they like it, then they do the long registration form, which I definitely think is a way easier way to kind of get them in and going. And then the paperwork comes later. Another thing, of course, that we do is pay students a stipend for their work and participation in our program. And along with that, in terms of barriers to doing programs like this, we go all over Austin. And in order to do that, we provide transportation to our students from school, either back to school if they live close to there or they drive, or back to their houses at the end of programming every evening. And when we survey students every year, transportation is like the biggest thing that they say, like, I wouldn't be able to do this program if it weren't for that. And so that I think is one of the most important things we provide, that of course we mentioned in the recruiting process, but in terms of having students be able to join us at all, most of them wouldn't be able to if we didn't provide that transportation, which is really important. Another thing we do as well, because of the hours that we keep them, is around dinner time. We feed them as well. Snacks and dinner every time they're with us are always provided. And whenever we do any sort of activity or adventure outdoor excursion, we provide the transportation, meals, and gear that they would need. So if it's cold and they need jackets or different shoes or hats, anything like that, sleeping bags when we're camping, tents, anything they could possibly need, we make sure to fill those gaps so they feel supported. And when a new, kind of excursion opportunity can be a little scary, a little frightening, but we've got everything they need and make sure that they know that when going in. And I think in terms of recruiting, the other thing that's really big with us is word of mouth is the biggest way we get a lot of students. During the pandemic, we were not able to go into any classes for a full calendar year, but we still had new students join us even when we were virtual for a full year, because a lot of our students that are in our program have siblings or cousins or friends, and they just talk about our program. They talk about it and they're like, you come join. And so via text message, every once in a while, you'll get a text from a student, hey, my friend told me about this program. And we'll just start from there and, get them to fill out the short form. We'll pick you up, we'll do this, and, just get them rolling through that. And so being available, really the way that they communicate most via text is the best way, I think, to recruit and to stay in contact with particularly high school students, but also college students as well. Email is just not going to do it. That's the way of adults. That's not the way of the youth. So text messages, FaceTime, and then because of how our program, like the community that we build and the way it's structured, I think really lends itself to the students just talking about it amongst friends, amongst family, and then, other students coming on, like when they have a little sibling that's in 8th grade, like we'll join, our summer program. And we've had many siblings and families like graduate with us. Like I think of Natalie, who graduated 2 years ago, and Mariela, who's graduating this year, who's her younger sister, and all sorts of things like that. So I think that's pretty much it. I mean, unless Beth, you have anything else you want to think of?
One last thing, I know Chanel is about to have to hop off because we have our AEL student presentations right now. But I think the last thing we do is we celebrate with our students. we celebrate them and we celebrate with them. So like last night we had a senior dinner celebration for all of our seniors that are graduating high school this year. And we try to make these like special moments for them. And like every year, like every time around, you know, the end of the holidays or the end of the school year, we like to have fun and celebrate with them, and just like kick back, have fun, eat good food, hang out, play games, like not necessarily any sort of work associated. Because I think work and fun is kind of what is a way to build a community amongst everybody. So yeah.
Oh, thank you, Beth and Chanel, so much for sharing the culture of care that y'all have worked hard to create, and the barriers you've reduced are so inspiring, and I'm loved hearing yours. Want to just take the last maybe 5 minutes or so and think about how can we continue across orgs to develop that network, that culture together. Kind of that second part of the question, if anyone has any responses.
I kind of think it's the way we're starting to do it right now. Just like having these groups and really intentionally talking to students about opportunities that are coming up for them, because it's so easy to get an email and be like, oh yeah, I'll forward this email to students, or I'll post this on our Facebook page. But actually talking to them about it, very specifically talking to them about the opportunities, I think that's what I have found most helpful this go around when having our AEL interns apply for the ACCC jobs in the summertime. Like, I think the reason that kind of happened more is I didn't just send them the email and then was like, cool, job opportunity, check it out. I talked to every single person in depth about it and like went through the flyer and whatnot. So yeah, I think that's a helpful practice.
I'm excited to be here. I do think this is like some really great space to be networking in. We are just emerging in our building a pathway intern to educator pathway, and just knowing, I mean, I've always known Austin Youth Riverwatch and Urban Roots have had, you know, high engagement of youth that could be potential educators in our programming in the future. So having the space for us to just share what's going on and when opportunities come up for growing that. We are very new. We have not as many opportunities yet. I'm working on funding for more. So I will show up or send someone to represent Peas so we can make sure to stay in contact and know what's going on. But just the resources also that you just gave me today from the last meeting that I didn't attend, I just like put them all in a folder to go read as we're in a hiring process right now. And then in the fall, we'll be adding interns. So just having these resources is super helpful. Thank you.
Anyone else examples of network of support that's worked, you've tried as, you know, even a young person doing that with the next generation, or other things you want to share in this space? Another couple minutes and then we'll kind of close out.
A little microphone. I did want to say that I definitely use the youth leadership working group as like my way to send opportunities, and then because y'all have such a better connection with youth or potential applicants, you have your respective avenues of sending out that information. So I really like having y'all as a good resource, and maybe, so I still use email, so I'll just email stuff to y'all, and then since y'all are more in touch with the youth, you can use your methods. But yeah, I haven't been like working or in a space that has opportunities for like educators, but I'm in a space that has opportunities for outdoor recreation, instruction, and those kinds of job opportunities. So it's always really good to have that connection between those spaces, because sometimes, yeah, the opportunities that I have may not be in alignment with an educator type role. So it's good to have just like a mixed bag of opportunities for working in, you know, the environmental field or the outdoor field.
I like, you know, I love this space because it's just, it's interesting to hear how people do outreach and like communicate. I'm glad that we're all on the text game because that is a major thing. I can't tell you how many random phone numbers I have on my phone. But you know, it's any way to communicate. And you know, through this journey, I have learned so much because you know, you're taught a certain way, you know, as you're growing up. Like I feel like us, and you know, like how we looked for jobs. Everyone's like, oh, you know, go on Indeed, go on, you know, like all these online things, and you had to have a resume and a cover letter, and you have to like produce all these things before you even like can get the job. And there wasn't much training involved. So like I use these experience I had, and like, you know, thinking about it nowadays in 2022 as a young person, like how do you search for jobs? How do you like, what is the most interesting way to recruit? So yeah, like, you know, before, like we kind of all mentioned like in person, you know, which was hard because of the pandemic and kind of getting through that. So I'm glad that we all kind of, you know, like as the world is changing, we've adapted and kind of just learned new ways and opportunities to engage and connect.
I did want to add to that and say, this mic. I did want to add to that and say that I've been here. I heard recently on the radio an advertisement for City of Austin, like the Natural Resources Division, that they're hiring. And I thought that that was a really fascinating way to get that information out there, but it definitely wasn't necessarily for the demographic that we're working for. And so that was my initial thought, was like, I don't think, because whenever I first started in the Natural Resources Division, I think I was 19, and I don't know, I enjoyed NPR and KUT, but not the average, you know, youth or an inclusive, you know, group of youth. They're not going to be listening to NPR or KUTX. So I just thought that that was an interesting way to do that. And I think that it goes to show that the city really is trying to get people to work. So it's great to have this group, and I just wanted to share my appreciation as well.
Thanks, Natalia. Yeah, I really value this space and learn so much from whoever shows up in it. The last plug I'll say is, one really effective strategy is compensating your young folks to go back and recruit for the next, or be the leaders of your programs, which I know everyone in this space is building into their models. But that's been, you know, they're the best people to recruit for the program and lead the programs. So we really try to do that with Austin Civilian Conservation Corps newly, but with that program for sure. I think we just have a couple minutes, so I think we'll pass it back to Sheridan. And I don't know if we need to screen share, but maybe it's helpful. But thank you all for having this conversation and building the network. Sounds like we got to text each other more.
Yeah, that was some great conversation. But basically, yeah, be on the lookout for our next sessions that are going to be geared towards organization leaders. In August, we'll have our youth adult partnerships one again. And then maybe in December, we'll be talking about retention, creating inclusive and caring workplace cultures. And I'll pass it to Jennifer to talk about our closing.
Hello. Oh my God. Sorry, I have a cough right now. If you want resources for recruiting, see the last slide in the presentation. And we have a resource sheet on the link below. New opportunities are added regularly, many. Scroll to page 2 for that. Be on the lookout for emails for our next meeting. In chat, share one takeaway from today's session and make sure to put your email in the chat if you want our list. Oh, the people were covering the last part. Yeah, and make sure to complete the YLWG new member form if you are a new member.
There are also some more resources. Oh yeah, I would say. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, there are also some more resources on the last slide.
And I think we share, we'll share our slides for those resources, and we'll send out an email for our next meeting, and our youth meetings too. So those are monthly, and they alternate between in-person and virtual. Please come out to our in-person. It was, we had one this week, and it was really fun just being outside in nature, and it was a beautiful day, and we're at Peace Park, and like if you haven't gone to Peace Park lately, it's like super beautiful, and we got to create with Sheridan, and Sheridan led an amazing session. Oh look, I have my bark press. I made a bark press during that time, but other folks made like little trinket holders with frogs and lily pads, which are super cute. I'm not that creative, so I was like, I'm just gonna use this tree. But this inspired me to do like famous tree pressings across, like wherever I find a nice tree. I don't know, maybe it sparked a new creative journey for me. But yeah, y'all, thanks for coming today and talking to us and having this space. And we hope to see you soon. Bye, everyone.
I can send out that follow-up email, Ashley. Thank you for saying that. I totally would have forgot.
No worries.
Oh, we're still recording too. I'm gonna stop recording.